I love playing What's My Function with the graphs of sines and cosine. And what's really interesting in this one is that I'd like you to, in each case, write the equation for both y equals a times the sine of bx plus c and y equals a times the cosine of bx plus c. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's work on the first picture. So there's two problems here. So this curve right here, first of all, I don't know how this could have happened, but my TI Inspire graphing calculator didn't put a -1 right there. That's just so weird. I'm wanting you to see that the amplitude is 5, and then I'm wanting you to see that this important point at the end of the cycle for this curve is 15. So can you see that going from a -1 to a positive 15 causes the period to be 16? That's the distance. So let's go ahead and write here. The amplitude is 5, the period is 16, and the displacement is, let's start with the easy one. Let's start with a sine curve. The displacement's a -1 for this sine curve. All right, and it's going to go up, etc. So my c values, because my displacement's negative, my c value is going to become positive. But what you have to do to write that sine curve, and I think I'll do this in black, is you have to calculate the b value by taking 2 pi and dividing it by the period, which is 16. So pi over 8 is the number that's going to go in front of, and I'm going to go ahead and start writing this curve now. So my sine curve is y equals 5, because the amplitude is 5, times the sine of b times x. And now, because the displacement is negative, I'm going to get this positive number here to put in for this sine curve. So remember that my c value is found by taking the opposite of b times my displacement. My b value is pi over 8, so I'll take the opposite of pi over 8, and I'm going to multiply it by the d value of a -1, and so that would be a positive pi over 8. So I'll put that in here. Okay, now I want you to write a cosine curve. So I'm going to choose to start this cosine curve right here, right there. And we're going to graph that, so it's kind of the minimum possible value for b. So what I want to know, now ignore these tick points because they're not at the quarter spots. I want to know what you would say that value is for x, given that the period is 16, and we started a -1, and this represents a quarter of the period, again, which is 16. So a quarter of 16 is 4. So this start point right here is, take that -1 and get to here. Wouldn't that be a 3? So for the cosine curve, my displacement is a -3. But my period hasn't changed. This is still 16. So when I go to write the equation, I'm going to go ahead and write it up here. Y equals the amplitude of 5 times the cosine of, I still have pi over 8 in front of x, just like I had pi over 8 here. But now I've got to find my new c value for this one, and it's found by taking the opposite of b times d. And my b value was pi over 8. So I want the opposite of this pi over 8 times my d value, which is a -3. And a negative times a negative is a positive. And I have positive 3 pi over 8 is the value that I'm going to put in here for the c value for this curve. If you would now pause and take a moment to type this equation. I'm sorry, I have a sign error. I've got to figure out what I did wrong here. Geez, silly. And if you don't mind, I'm not going to record. When I recorded the displacement, this 3, somehow I wrote a -3 here. That's so ridiculous. So I apologize. Therefore, this right here would be a positive 3. And so my C value would be a negative right here, 3 pi over 8. I was finishing that problem in the video and I'm going, now wait a minute, this got shifted to the right. So the equation should have a minus sign, kind of thinking, opposites. Now would you go ahead and check this equation and this equation in your graphing calculator? What would I do for a window? My period is 16. So I'd probably start my window at a -1, and this point right here is 15, and so this point right here would be 19. So I'd probably go, to check this on my graphing calculator, I'd go x min of a -1 and x max of at least 19. You could put in 20 if you wanted. Y min of 5 and a -5, I'm sorry, and a y max of a +5, and see if those two curves follow one another exactly. This one's much easier actually. So let's come on over here. Let's graph the cosine curve first because it's easier. So you see this spot? This cosine curve, it doesn't have a displacement at all because it's got a -2 for an amplitude, and it goes up through here, 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 and right here. However, I meant for this spot right here to represent pi over 4, and I meant for this spot right here to represent 5 pi over 4. So let's go find the period of this function first. So the period is the distance between these 2 points. Remember how the period here went from a -1 to 15, so it was a total of 16? Here, because they're both on the positive side, I can take 5 pi over 4 minus 1 pi over 4, and the period is 4 pi over 4, or just pi. So again, we have chosen to start with a cosine curve that's going to have, and I'm going to do this in black, it's going to have an amplitude of a -2 times the cosine of, and I have to find my b value. Remember, my b value is 2 pi divided by my period, which is pi. So those pi's cancel out. So my b value for this one is 2. And I get to close my parentheses because that curve was not displaced at all. It started down here. Now mind you, it didn't start up here. It did start at a -2, but I'm done. Now to write the sine curve from this one, I'm going to start here and go through the red section. So my displacement for this one is pi over 4. So I'm going to write my work down here in red. My displacement is a positive pi over 4. My b value will still be 2 for this curve. So my c value is the opposite of my b value times my displacement, opposite of b times d. b is 2, so the opposite of 2 times pi over 4, that's your displacement, is a -2 pi over 4, or pi over 2. So the red curve that I'll fill in here, remember this curve starts right here and it goes up. So it's going to be a +2 times the sine of the 2x still. The 2 has to stay the same. The periods did not change for these. My c value is a minus pi over 2 because this curve is displaced to the right, a positive. So this should be opposite. Would you again take a moment to put into your graphing calculator these two curves? If I were you, I would put in an x minimum of 0. So you can start right here. And we want to go at least through here. I believe you can type into your calculator x max is 5 times pi divided by 4, and it will turn that number into whatever 5 times pi divided by 4 is. I'm going to do it really fast. So 5 pi divided by 4, it will turn your x max into 3.93. You could just put a 4 in for your x max. Your y min is a -2. And your y max is a +2. And check when the first line comes up, the black line, which is 2 times the cosine of x, see if the red line follows over top of it. This is the end of our study of the graphs of sine and cosine.